Are you tired of marketing events where nobody's actually done the work? Unpacked is different. February 18th through 19th, it's virtual, it's free, real lifecycle marketers sharing tactics you can steal today. Register at cust.io/TMM.
Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
We are back with another episode of the Marketing Millennials podcast. Today, I have Marc Sirkin on the podcast. Me and Marc kind of have a beef right now. I'm kidding about Marketing Land, but we'll talk about that more later.
I can't wait.
But he's the CEO of Third Door Media, and if you have been in marketing for a while, you will probably know martech.org. He made the biggest mistake not using marketingland.com, but that's also something we could talk about too. And he is great at building audiences, and it was sold to SEMrush, and now SEMrush is sold to Adobe. And this is just the spiral effect of how things are going. But I want to let you intro yourself, and how did you get into marketing?
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been a while. We've been talking about it, so I'm excited to see you again. I think we last saw each other at Inbound back in September, whatever that was. And just to clarify, I left SEMrush in October to start my own consulting firm. So I spent a year as CEO of Third Door Media inside SEMrush and left, and we can talk about that too. And we definitely can talk about Marketing Land, because that is an interesting and fun conversation to have. So to answer the question, like kind of briefly, I started as a graphic designer back in the early 90s. I'm very old. And I was just having coffee with somebody, so I'll tell the story for the second time today. So my boss said to me, "Hey, Marc, you're a good designer." I was like, "Okay, thanks." And he's like, "But you're not great." It's like, oh shit. That's like a backhanded compliment. But what he saw in me was kind of an operational rigor and a strategy mind. And he kind of pulled me into project management, operations, product development, product marketing. And that kind of set the career on fire in many ways. That was the first time I was with a company. I was only young though. I was 24 or whatever. But we sold our small digital agency. We were like 11 people. We sold it to a company called IXL that became one of the like big .com agencies at the time. That company grew from 30 people to 3,500 people like in 18 months. It was absolutely insane. Inside that company, I kind of cut my chops on project management, product marketing, built a product, and we ended up getting funding for that product. We got $18 million actually. Back then they were giving money away like it was falling off trees. Intel funded us with a couple of other founders, and we started a company based out of San Diego that was basically Squarespace in 1998, effectively. And so it was a really interesting experience. And it kind of like really kind of lit me up in many ways. I ended up taking a job at the March of Dimes running digital fundraising and marketing for them. And that lit up, a 10-year nonprofit career. So I spent 10 years in kind of like the large health charities running digital fundraising, community, strategy. Ended up at PwC doing some consulting work, and then finally landed through a weird set of circumstances at Third Door Media. Love Third Door Media, incredible search engine land, MarTech, as you mentioned, Marketing Land at the time. And I kind of grew into the president position and ultimately CEO position as we sold the company to SEMrush. And so I've kind of played I've worn all the marketing hats, like whether it's, the rise of social, the rise of e-commerce, the early days with content management systems, as a graphic designer, obviously back then, info, kind of web architect was like the hot role back then. So I've been around for a long time. I've done all the different marketing roles. It's interesting to see where it's evolved to with the sort of modern day go-to-market stuff. But that's the nickel tour from my career.
And I know, a lot of the businesses you've run had massive reach. So when did you realize that growing the audience wasn't automatically growing the business?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the first time I ever reckoned with that, I think it was at Autism Speaks, actually. It was the first time I reckoned that. We had We had, like everybody back then, organic social was like the thing. It was the hot tactic. And Facebook had just become kind of public open to everybody. And we had several board members who were impacted by autism at different levels, kids on the spectrum, that kind of thing. And we had somebody at all the big companies, Twitter, Facebook, and they all came to us in those early days saying, like, let us help you build your audience and it will drive tons of fundraising. And the one that's in my mind now that kind of illustrates that point is that we were at, let's say, 300,000 followers on Facebook at the time, or friends, or whatever it was back then. And Facebook lit up their, and I'm blanking on the name, but at the time there was like a special program for basically groups and businesses on Facebook. And we went from 300,000 to like 800,000, like over. It was like on a Tuesday, I went in and checked the dashboard. I was like, wait, how did we get to 800,000 people? And it was because Facebook had launched this program and we were in it. We were like one of 2 or 3 charities in the program. The audience exploded and fundraising did not follow. And it was just like to your question, it was like, oh, wait, like just because you can acquire eyeballs doesn't mean necessarily growth follows. Now, we figured out how to drive growth out of that audience ultimately, but it wasn't like turn on the faucet and all of a sudden, money comes. And I've seen that multiple times in my career. In fact, I'm just remembering now, the March of Dimes was highlighted on Oprah Winfrey show back in the day, which was like the biggest thing on the planet. And we saw traffic jump that day by like, 10,000%, but no donations. And so, there's an interesting relationship, think about the Super Bowl this weekend. Like there's an interesting relationship between eyeballs and growth that is, worth talking about.
Yeah. I wonder, for that like follow growth and just like the mention on like a big show, like what do you think the perceived gap was that like, because for some businesses, if they get a mass spike and they do have a good landing page and the offer is there, it can explode like your business. But also like if you get mentioned and there's not a good like call to action of like, okay, Oprah doesn't say like, I don't know but Oprah didn't say, hey, everybody go like I'm putting money into March of Dimes. Right. You should too. Like what was like the perceived gap basically on Facebook and like mentions? What do you see? Like what would have tightened that gap to help more?
I think it's context, right? I think sure, you're absolutely right. Like, the direct mail and the direct marketing worlds understand that the right audience, it's interesting. I'm kind of like, I wasn't really thinking about this until you just said that, but like pre-internet, when we were in a world of, non-social media, non-performance marketing, direct marketing and direct media, like they figured out pretty quickly, hey, if we advertise, I don't know, the Tony Robbins program at 3 a.m. when people are up and they shouldn't be up and they're feeling bad about themselves, and we put something motivational, like there's context for that. So I think there's something similar here. I don't think the principles have changed. I think, in the case of Autism Speaks, all of a sudden we're in front of a whole bunch of people who are on Facebook exploring the platform who don't necessarily have a direct connection to that world. Okay, let's see what this is all about. But I don't think we were sophisticated enough at the time to understand how to try to convert some of that, let's call it anonymized or non-contextual audiences into donors, volunteers, whatever we might have wanted to do with that. So I think like getting that alignment, as you said, is critical. So, sure, the pieces are like the landing page and the offer, but the channel and the medium also matter, right?
It could have been like, people didn't care on like in Oprah's audience about March.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's dangerous to assume big audience, big results. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. It can work. I'm sure we're going to hear about several advertisers that, put, Super Bowls out that had great response and others that didn't. The question is how you align that to the audiences. Because obviously Super Bowl is a different thing, right? You're talking about a mass audience.
Yeah, and I mean, with those type of things, it's like creative is the targeting, like you not targeting. It's like
that's right.
Whatever creative you put out as there is targeting. Like if you're a business owner and like Squarespace is trying to get domains,
that's right.
Like you're trying to target people to come.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about the world we live in today is that we've all grown up, let's say the last 15, 20 years in a very performance marketing culture, right? We all kind of understand the equation of like, put money in over here, get people here, get results over here. Well, prior to performance marketing, again, 15, 20 years ago, brand marketing and sort of more general marketing was not measured that way. It was measured in terms of brand lift and brand, aided, unaided. These are things that big brands still do, but the typical performance internet marketer isn't doing those kinds of things. They're expensive, they're time consuming. You don't get a fast feedback loop. So there's something happening, and we could talk about like what's happening with GEO or LLM visibility, because there's some interesting parallels to like how do you measure visibility in LLM to the way we used to measure brand versus clicks, money, clicks, results. And so it's shifting a little bit, I think, in interesting, subtle ways.
I also think, I want to get your take on this, because you hearing now a lot of people that like some of their primary goal is like, we need to grow our audience. We need to grow our audience. Like, how do we need to grow our audience? But they, and that could even come at the expense of like, they're not thinking about like business outcomes and stuff like that. So, like, what do you tell marketers about that audience growth piece to be careful of? And then also like how to do it the correct way?
Yeah, I've thought this for a while, but I've just started to really articulate it in my own head. Sort of as a consultant, like what's the story I'm trying to tell people? And I think that at its core, the product market fit and the sort of ICP of that product is the most important thing. There's trite sayings, like you can say, oh, there's riches and niches. Okay, fair enough. But different products have different audiences, and some products appeal to mass audiences and some don't. Some appeal to niche audiences. But at the end of the day, what strikes me as interesting is that we're in a world now where SEO isn't working the way it used to work. It's not as predictable. We don't fully understand how discoverability is working on LLMs, nor do we believe that the kind of clicks that the click volume you're going to get from LLMs is way less than it was from traditional SEO. We know that the email game is shifting very quickly. It's hard to get in people's inboxes and get people to click. So we know channel marketing is getting harder. Costs are rising. And so I think if you have a product that doesn't have a really well-defined ICP and a really great product market fit, it can be hard to figure out, well, what is the message here? And so the size of the audience is important. You need a big enough audience, right? You need a big enough TAM to make a difference to your business goals. But I think if you just think in terms of just gross numbers in terms of the audience, it's like, who are we talking to here? Do we understand how they're receiving it? Again, I think about the Oprah example. Like, great, we got in front of millions and millions of people, but it didn't move the needle. So what the heck does that mean? So there's kind of a weird trade-off that I think is becoming more acute in today's marketing landscape, which is like, you better have your product market fit dialed and you better have that ICP dialed, because people are expecting more personalized content. They're expecting a better buyer journey. These are things that like, they're tough to do at the mass market. And look, God bless you if you're a B2C marketer and you're selling, I don't know, tires or something. That's not my world. But if you're selling B2B stuff, you're talking about a specific audience. I do think that the pressure is on to sort of get those pieces right before you accelerate channel marketing. I think if you just say like, we're just going to spend money on LinkedIn because we know the audience is there, I just haven't seen a lot of signs of success of that.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people say hire a product marketer as your first marketer.
Yeah.
A lot of problems when you go into business is they lost track of like their roots of like product marketing and discovering their core message and going to you have to redo that exercise to figure it out, because usually the reason they're not performing is like the messaging isn't clear. It's not, their audience isn't clear. Like there might be a mismatch on messaging and audience. It's just like, you always have to go back to like fundamentals usually with marketing. So I think that's a crucial point you're making on that, going back to, you have to go back to your core a lot. And that's usually like where people mess up, is they start, oh, I want to build an audience of 1 million people, but why? I mean, you could have an audience of 8,000 plumbers and hit your goals easier than having 100,000 and 8,000 art plumbers and like 5,000.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, once you have that audience, you have a revenue spine. Because once you understand the product market fit and once you understand the ICP and the audience, you can build a spine that drives the kind of revenue you need to drive through that business. I think where a lot of businesses get in trouble is, and we struggle with this at Third Row Media. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. We had an event business that drove sponsorship dollars. We had an advertising business that monetized the eyeballs on sites like Search Engine Land. And we had a lead gen business that helped us work with sponsors to drive like targeted ICP fit lead gen, right? We debated for years, like, should we create a job board and charge for listings? Should we create certifications, training programs? And, it was always very sexy. It's like, oh yeah, let's create and I spent probably 6 months like really digging into certificate during COVID. We're like, Third Door Media, boy, it would be great to have like a search certification from Search Engine Land. Sounds sexy, probably could sell a few of those. There was a huge organizational commitment. And what we realized was the certification business is different than the advertising event sponsorship business. So we're actually deciding to go into a different business. Do we think organizationally we can support that business, or is it going to distract us? In our case, we decided it's going to distract us. But I would argue, and maybe the audience will feel me on this, is like there's a lot of businesses that make the decision like it seems like an easy lift. Today we can vibe code a website, no problem. Let's start another revenue stream. Well, it's very distracting for an organization to have multiple revenue streams if you haven't dialed the main one in. And so it's like, again, like the audience might be receptive to more products, but are you hitting your goals? Are you driving the revenue you need to drive through? Have you earned the right to sort of expand beyond that? And I think that's a disciplined conversation. I mean, it's easy to get distracted and think we could do that too, no problem.
And it's also a lot of it's a different motion too, and a different like skill set, and sometimes a different audience. If you're trying to go after a different audience, you have to redo messaging. You have to go back and do all the. You got to have probably a different person thinking about it than thinking about the main audience. And a lot of people put it on one marketer to be like, you have to do messaging for this. And then, we have this other product that does this, and you have to do messaging for that, and then messaging for that. And then
that's right.
Then you end up what we talked about at the beginning is you try put out this like broad messaging and see who comes in, and then it doesn't work as well as targeted like core messaging to your ICP.
That's right. And it takes real discipline, and that discipline isn't just a marketing function, right? It's pressure from sales saying we want more products, we need more products to sell. Fair enough, but are you selling the current products well enough? Right? Or do we agree that we've got the right motion for that first set of products before we go launch new products? There's a financial component to it, right? How's this going to affect profitability, EBITDA, all the rest of the stuff? There's an ego aspect to it, right? Hey, we're good marketers. We can pull this off. Don't worry. I'll just work a couple extra hours. Like there's a bunch of other factors in when you make this decision. They're all dangerous. And I'm not saying it can't work out. But I am saying like it's dangerous, and you should be mindful about, adding pressure to an ICP and a product market fit is tricky.
I know with like Third Door Media, which motion did you like figure out had like the most leverage when it came? The
motion with the most leverage, to be honest, was advertising. The problem with that, because it's so high margin, easy, right? It's easy to implement an ad platform, take orders, and deliver the ads. The problem is demand. Demand was very macroeconomic in my experience. Maybe we were wrong about this, but our experience was advertising, and I'm talking about display on the sites. Our house ads on our sites went from sub 10% total revenue to 30% during COVID, and then right back down after COVID. So there were macroeconomic reasons for that, but highly, highly leveraged. Lead gen is very high leverage, huge margins on like selling webinars, with lead gen components to it, especially if it's a targeted ICP where once you get them hooked on, hey, this is a really good fit, we're getting good quality leads, that's real easy to resell. So you get a real good retention number on it. In the event business, virtual events are great, high leverage, because it doesn't cost a lot to do virtual events. But other than our friend Jay, I don't know who's figured out virtual events very well. Maybe Marketing Land has, but like virtual events are getting harder and harder to sell post-COVID. And now the drive back to in-person events has the downside of in-person events are expensive to run at scale. So they're not fully leveraged away.
It's so hard. It's like one of the they're needed, but it's not like a profit play. It's not a profit play. Audience play.
Correct. Yeah. And that's tough. That's tough in this environment, right? Because like for Third Door, and I'm not sure how you run Marketing Land, but for Third Door, those were for-profit events. Those events were designed to make profit for Third Door Media, period. Now, we leveraged sponsors to pay for some stuff, but if you're a B2B marketer and your boss is, your CMO, your CEO is like, we got to get in front of people, it's very, very tough to run a B2B event without losing money and saying, hey, we're going to lose some money here, but we're going to make it up in pipeline. That's a tough one.
I think in person, is a long game thing. I think eventually it becomes a profit center, but if you need revenue now, it's like it's a hard trade-off. Eventually if it becomes a thing, it's
Yes,
going to
right.
be a very good profit center for
Yeah,
you. But
agree.
year one, year two, year three, even maybe year four, it might make break even or slightly profit. So it's like that's a hard.
Dude, let me tell you something. Yeah, I'll leave names out of this just to protect the innocent, but I know that there are several B2B events that lose somewhere between $800 to $1 million a year I've heard of one that loses $20 million a year, and they're fine with it. They're a huge company. They invest a huge amount of money. It's both
it's a marketing play. A media company couldn't do it, but it's a marketing play for like a
correct.
SaaS company to do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like, think about it. Like, if you're a CMO of a mid-sized B2B software company, as an example, and you're like, look, we're going to do this event and it's going to have marketing benefit down the road, but we're going to lose $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 this year. That's a tough sell. You really got to be sold that there's something down the road for you. And it takes a real vision, right? The event team and the leadership team need the vision to go do that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you're right. In a media context, like, it was unacceptable to lose money running events. Like, they were for-profit events.
And I think when you come down, like for like the media example you gave, I think when you're deciding on advertising versus like people paying, you're deciding versus, am I trying to create opportunities that everybody can have versus like making it like only for a select group of people? Because advertising basically, like with this open AI talking about it, like doing ads, like it's trying to make it not like only the people with money can afford like ChatGPT. Is trying to say like it's a library where anybody who wants to be educated could do that, and advertising is the medium to do it. Like that's why people are still advertising.
That's right.
All around is because it's a way to offset cost for so people can have it for free.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, look, you're in business to make money. So there's different schemes by which to make that money. A free event that draws lots of audience that you can monetize later, that's a fine strategy. I don't think it's about good or bad strategy. It's about being deliberate about that strategy and being specific about it, right? As opposed to being sloppy and saying, we'll just try everything and like whatever works. It's tough.
Yeah, that's so like the audience play is hard, like we talked about before, because it's like it's also like picking the right stream to go first. Is like, am I becoming an event company? Because all these, when you're coming down these ropes, like they're different motions, as we said, is like event motion so different than a newsletter motion versus a community motion versus and you have to decide, do we have the people on the team to execute this in motion? Is it going to be a profit center, or is it going to be a loss center, or is it going to break even? Is it an audience play? Is it a marketing play, or is it a profit play? You have to make these decisions ahead of time and before saying, I'm just going to run an event or I'm just going to run a newsletter.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly why I said earlier, the revenue spine. That's my frame of reference is what's the spine of this company? And are we world-class at this part of execution? Because we need to be, because the market demands it. And once we've built a solid foundation, okay, great. Like we've built a big audience and we've monetized it through, let's just say, advertising as an example. Right. And we used to say this at Third Door all the time. Like, the reason SMX works, the reason MarTech works is we've earned the right to ask people to pay to show up for an event in person with us. We earn it every single day by publishing great content. They trust us. And then when we say, hey, we're going to run an event, would you like to come? It's $1,500. Enough of them say, yes, we would like to come to the event. Right. But like, there are different models. You can get at this in different ways. You can start an event company that doesn't have an editorial brand. But for Third Door, the DNA was the editorial brand first, build the audience, and then earn the right to monetize it through the other ways that we monetize it. So getting that strategy right and understanding what that revenue spine is step one. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's really easy to get sucked down the like clay, go-to-market engineer, AI powered, whatever. Like, it's easy to get like enthralled by like how cool it is of the things you can do today. But without a good spine, I'm not sure any of that stuff works. Like, great, we got a ton of leads. They're the wrong leads. Nothing converted. Okay, good luck.
Yeah, I also think that we're becoming in a time where like things are commoditized. Like B2B is becoming more like and I hate it, is more like a consumer play than it was ever before, because before there was like one or two or three options in your space, and you can run certain plays like demos and win because you can hide pricing, you can say fluffy things, you could work. But now, like, truly marketing is the mode, and the person who owns attention is the mode, and the person who owns trust is the mode.
Yeah.
Where before it was less of that because the competition wasn't there. But now that everything is kind of becoming a commodity, even in B2B, there's like 10 different options for everything. I mean, why advertising works is because it does, like I said, for me, it lowers like the choice paradox, basically. Like it helps you like make a decision advertising.
Yeah.
In this world where there's 20 options, at least like an ad's educating you, getting you closer to that purchasing decision that you didn't have before. So that's why ads need to exist in this world.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, there's a reason why Dunkin' keeps hiring Ben Affleck to do his Dunkin' commercials, right? Like, it's very on brand. Dunkin's a Boston brand, a Northeast brand. Ben is a guy who you sort of relate to in a bunch of different ways. And they make that calculation the same way that any brand, utilizes celebrity or brand messaging or brand positioning. There's an art to it that, it's like, again, we've all been trained over the last 15 years on this performance, this relationship to like spend and results. But the reality is that brand choice, and you're absolutely right, the cognitive load on making a choice in a crowded market's hard. Like, how do you make a choice? Like, okay, I'll just go ask ChatGPT. Well, I don't know if ChatGPT is right. So how do I start to winnow that down? And the truth is that advertising as one tactic, there's a reason why storytelling, narrative-driven advertising kind of lasts. Like the kind of advertising that Nike does at that level, like sticks with you. Now, you may hate it, fair enough, but you remember it. And that does reduce that choice paradox. I think that's a good way to frame that. So advertising, look, I mean, we could debate whether or not, the Budweiser ad was a good ad or a bad ad. That's not the issue. The issue is like, did it hit the audience the way that they hoped it did? And did it get them the results in terms of their brand lift that they wanted?
And you're seeing more and more of those brands. Like, it's not, the Super Bowl is just one of the moments where that campaign, now they're learning that campaign needs to be, that's right, social, the CTV. I mean, like a different channels, like they're making use of that creative.
Yeah.
Like, and they took multiple takes, and it's become like, just because they have that one Super Bowl, they're trying to make it work for multiple different channels and multiple.
I mean, it's interesting because like it used to be the Super Bowl was the moment that you saw those ads for the first time, but now you see them all in advance, right? We saw all the ads in advance. We saw the Claude ad was shown like a week before the Super Bowl. It's all over YouTube. So yes, you're right. The leverage of that advertising unit becomes de-atomized or atomized in multiple different ways, so that they're getting pre-moment experiences and post-moment follow-up. It's brilliant, but it's all part of what that buyer journey has become, right? Because the thing that's different between now and 50 years ago is the media landscape has completely exploded. There's a million channels, there's unlimited channels that you can go to, whether they're digital or analog or whatever. And so you're not going to get coverage on all of them. And that's where, kind of like understand, again, going back to product market fit and ICP, like, well, where are your people hanging out? Let's go there. It's hard.
Like, okay, I may have seen, like, maybe I wasn't on X at the time on YouTube or to see the Anthropic. I could have been on.
That's right.
I could have been at the Super Bowl, or during the Super Bowl, they could have been I could have been on TikTok and they're running an ad to me. It's like, that's the new game, is that people's attention are everywhere. And if you're not, you can't just be on that TV, because during your ad, someone could be scrolling on their phone, missing your ad, and you're not running that moment on an ad or a TikTok ad or on a social post on Instagram, and you're missing the moment of that one creative that could have been everywhere.
That's right. The other thing that's interesting is, just to stick on this, like the creative is interesting. I saw some data about the halftime show. The halftime show had X, I don't remember, I don't want to misquote the numbers, but the halftime show had X million of views on YouTube at halftime, and it like doubled or tripled within like 12 hours after the show. So people were going to watch it for the first time and going to rewatch it on YouTube multiple times. The engagement levels are kind of through the roof. So it's like, you're right. There's this interesting kind of wheel of content. And we all, as content marketers, we all know this, right? You're trying to squeeze as much leverage out of every piece of content you can get. And certainly making an investment for X $1 million to run a Super Bowl ad in today's environment is going to require, a certain amount of digital savvy to leverage that creative. But that's true. Forget the Super Bowl. That's true if you're doing a podcast like yours, or that's true if you're doing a webinar, right? If you're doing a webinar for a client and you're not leveraging it on social with clips, you're missing opportunities to reach the audience where they are.
The goal, now when you're thinking about ads, is you're thinking about, okay, can I have this in multiple places? But also you're also thinking of like, is this ad going to be clipped up and by other people and put like halftime show? I know it was in technically, it was basically a Bad Bunny ad and Bad Bunny sharing his message ad, but it was clipped up so much because there was such a message and such a storytelling to the halftime show but that's what you want. You want clips and people making and talking about it and showing that they're watching it. And you don't only want your channels to be the ones that have to be promoting your content.
That's right. Like this podcast, I talked to somebody the other day about a podcast, and this podcast as well, right? The more I, and I even on my own podcast, it's all about the clips. It's very hard. Like we've recorded for 30 minutes now. A handful of people will watch the whole 30 minutes. Hi to those people who are still watching, whatever. But the reality is that most people get the clips and they go, oh, that's interesting. And if it's interesting enough, maybe I'll go watch some of the episode. But like it's become all about the clips, because the clips are where you can get mass distribution to drive the brand awareness that reduces hey, what podcast is a good podcast? Oh, I don't know. Marketing Millennials sounds like a good one. I saw a clip. It was cool. Like I'll check it out. So like that's coming at all angles, no matter whether you're talking about big time, Coca-Cola, Pepsi brand advertising, or, marketing land. And how do you, it's the same set of tactics, but it's just scaled for the size of the business and the audience that you're talking about.
I have a question. Did you ever have to intentionally slow or deprioritize a high visibility channel if it wasn't like providing leverage to the business?
That's a good question. Yes, but only in experimental ways. So for example, at Third Door, we tested, and actually at other clients I've had, we were testing. I'll talk about Third Door. At Third Door, we really thought, like everybody thought, well, LinkedIn is the right audience. Like we're selling tickets to events, and we should probably be able to sell some tickets and some sponsorship. And we scaled up a number of kind of modern ICP-driven, AI-powered like campaign tactics that just didn't show the return on the investment. And so we slowed or shut some of those down. We didn't spend a huge amount of money, but we were spending enough that it was like, this is a little uncomfortable. And not seeing any signal through that noise was concerning, in as much as, did we get the targeting wrong? Do we have the wrong product market fit? Do we have the wrong landing page? Where do we sort of start to think about how to address that to get this thing back on track? And so we kind of came to the conclusion, which I don't know is totally true. We kind of came to the conclusion that paid media, the way we're doing it, doesn't work. We're either not spending enough money to get enough reps to find the answer, or this audience just isn't going to buy a high price paid ticket to an event through an ad, even as part of a funnel. And so, kind of, I don't know if that's a great example, but kind of an example based on the question you asked.
Sometimes it's like we said before, sometimes it's like a offer problem. Sometimes it's like it's hard to set, like you need a bigger budget to sell on that channel. Yeah. Sometimes some people don't spend enough time like letting the ad run in the algorithm. So then it's not showing to the right, because sometimes the algorithm needs to figure out, okay, this ad is served for this person. And this happens on Meta all the time too. It's like people run ads, they don't let the learning period happen, right. And then, they're not spending enough to even let the learning. That's and right. Not spending a lot, meaning like hundreds of thousands or more. It's just like
even a couple hundred. Yeah,
but they're not letting, and they're like, oh, it doesn't work for me. But they didn't let. The algorithm has to like figure out who you're serving to based on the messaging you're saying, based on your caption, based on who's engaging. It's a whole learning process to serve your ad to the right person.
Yeah, and it's real true. I've been studying and trying to figure out YouTube, and I've read a couple of books and watched some YouTube videos. But like, it's clear to me that the algorithm, like, it's an interesting spin to think about it this way. The algorithm and the business, YouTube's business and LinkedIn, they want you to succeed, but they can't allow you to succeed unless they have a signal of that connection, right? So when you post a video on YouTube, and this happens on TikTok too, right? It kind of tests the audience. It's like, here's who's connected to you. It shows the video. If you get a high enough click-through rate, a high enough engagement rate, it will start to accelerate that out to larger and larger audiences. It's once you understand that, you start reframing like, oh, like I'm having real trouble with my YouTube channel because I like to talk about a lot of different things. It turns out bad idea, stupid idea. I should be talking about one thing over and over again and hammering the audience so that I finally find the audience, and then it will accelerate my impression volume, which will lead to view volume, which will lead to subscriber growth. I didn't know that that's actually how it worked until somewhat recently, and I'm trying to refactor how I do my content in that channel.
I think one thing too, I think with paid media especially, I think people confuse like an impression or like as an actual like attention. And I think that's the problem. Attention is not always just because your ad was shown to someone doesn't mean they paid attention to it. That's why I love like organic social, because if nobody's paying attention, it's not going to be served in the algorithm. That's right. That's how it works. Like a post is going to go to more and more people because they want people to stay on the platform. So what do you tell people when the difference between attention versus traction?
Here's what I hate about most marketing conferences. Consultants who haven't sent a campaign in 5 years telling you to optimize your funnel. Unpack kills the noise. It's February 18th through 19th, virtual, and packed with practitioners who actually build the stuff. AI workflows, multi-channel strategies, the stuff that actually moves the needle. No one-on-one content, no panels where everyone agrees, just advanced tactics from people in the trenches. Last year, over 3,500 lifecycle marketers showed up. Join them at cust.io/TMM.
Well, I think you just demonstrated it with what you're saying about impressions versus like engagement. I mean, I think like, attention is the first kind of gate to get through. Like is your, and impressions are a signal, right? Like a lot of impressions is a good thing, assuming traction follows. And traction, again, like the reality is, it depends on what you're trying to do. If it's a direct mail ask, you're trying to get somebody to sign up for your course, we know what that looks like, right? We know what the benchmarks are. We know what the expected conversion rate is. It's within a thing. But I think if the goal is brand building, let's say, and attention, you're going to use attention as a measurement of, hey, did we lock this and get the right audience? Again, it's all about defining the funnel and what you're trying to get out of that, whether it's a spend or organic, it doesn't really matter. But we all experience this every day. For some reason, this post I did on LinkedIn did really well, and this post didn't. And I feel like that post was a lot better than the first one, but for whatever reason, it was Tuesday at 3 p.m. It just worked better. So a lot of times it's hard to decipher. And I think all of us are sort of like Sherlock Holmesing these algorithms. Like, do we really understand how this works? I mean, this has been going on in the SEO space for forever. We're all trying to decipher the Google thing. But the reality is that attention matters if it converts, and conversion is in the eye of the beholder. What do we mean by conversion? You've got to get real specific about that with your audience. And by the way, the traditional funnel, top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, whatever you want to call it, it's not that it's dead, but it was never really real. People don't buy in a linear fashion. So we're sort of coming to recognize oh, it's a messy buying process. People come in and out. I'll give you one good example. So we used to do event emails on Mondays and Thursdays. Okay. And we would send hey, this week's promo goes Monday. And then anybody who opened it on Monday will get this version on Thursday. Anybody who didn't open it would get this version on Thursday. Opens on opens. Real simple, right? And then we would see when people start to buy tickets. And it's really interesting. We would sell very little tickets on Monday and Tuesday. High engagement rates, big open rates, lots of clicks. Okay. And no sales. Yeah, that's weird. And then on Thursday, send the resend, and you get a massive response from the opens and dead air from the unopens. And so I literally started calling people on the phone, be like, hey, can I talk to you 5 minutes? I see you, I know it's creepy, but I see you open the email on Monday and you didn't buy a ticket until we sent you the resend on Thursday. Oh yeah, it had nothing to do with the resend. I was just checking my calendar and I forgot. And the Thursday email reminded me that I hadn't bought the ticket. There's a B2C/B2B thing happening here, right? It's they got to go check with their husband or their wife, hey, kid's not graduating high school on Thursday, on June 2nd, are they? Because I want to go to this conference. So it's like once you understand the psychology of the buyer and how they think about buying, you can start to map like the tactics in. And so you can sort of go, hey, we're doing these emails on Monday for attention. So let's be a little wild. Let's kind of like do a little bit of what Jay does a lot, like kind of crazy subject lines. And on Thursday, it's like, let's close the deal. Hey, you open on Monday, buy a ticket because prices are about to go up. Simple. That formula really worked. But it seems like I'm saying it now. It was like obvious. It was not obvious. It's not how we used to do ticket sales. We learned that as we kind of played with the audience and sort of like, okay, what's really happening here? So attention's good. Conversion's better, but those things work in lockstep. They have to.
I still hear from people today that like we're sending too much emails. Like,
oh yeah.
So
I believe it. I know at Third Door Media, I know it. We sent too much email, but it was an email driven product.
I honestly think if my theory on sending too much email is like if it's aligned and people like the content's good enough, you can like send as much email if it's relevant to that audience. There is a nuance to it. Like don't over send salesy emails. Like, but if you send me like newsletter and content, and I see this, and then throwing in like plugs here and there, I think there's a level you could send. Another question for you is like, what is one question that every leadership team should ask quarterly to make sure they're not like optimizing for like the wrong motion?
I think it comes back to what I said earlier about revenue spine. If you are very clear on, if you've got 1 to X number of revenue sources or streams, and you're real clear on this is the one that matters, and these matter, but they don't matter as much, but this is the 1 or 2 that are the spine of the business, the one that drives the most profitability. I think quarterly, it would be helpful, and AI could be a huge help here, right? Like, are we drifting? Do we have content drift? Are we mixing messages and mixing audiences? Have we slid into getting quote unquote lazy with our marketing messages, or are we hammering home the revenue, the key revenue things? Is it still delivering? The side revenue things, fine, but like we know what butters the bread. And are we being really disciplined about treating that audience the way they deserve to be treated? I think quarterly, if you did a check kind of against your ICP, against your product market fit, that would be smart. I venture to guess not that many people do that at that level, just to make sure. Like, and I'm talking about like open up all the emails you sent this month. Like, go look at them. What they said. Like, really, like read them out loud to each other. Like that kind of thing would be, I think, really. Like, what are the ads? What did the headlines drift? Did we start using different images because we got bored? Did we lose our discipline on what we're doing? Because I think that brand repetition, it just really matters. We know that people take, back in the day, we used to say 8 impressions. Now it's probably 15 or 20 impressions. But like to get somebody to take an action, it's multiple actions, and you need to reduce the cognitive load on people. You need to make it real easy for them to understand, oh, it's those guys. That's why I think you see strategies where like they'll lean into like a bright color or like, a real specific brand icon, and they'll just hammer it over and over and over again. It seems boring to you as the marketer, but the audience, they're getting reinforced. So I think that kind of reinforcement check internally, based on this conversation, just in the context of this conversation, probably a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, I say that on social all the time. It's a repeated message thing. As you grow, someone hasn't seen your messaging, so like sometimes it's not everybody's going to see your message. Not everybody's going to remember your message. So it's that repetition of telling people what you believe in over and over and over until like they come down the funnel. If you were starting a B2B media company today or a SaaS company today, what would you deliberately not build, even if everybody told you to?
That's a really good question. And it's a hard one because I think the media landscape is shifting, and the kind of traditional tricks that worked maybe 10 or 15 years ago may not work as well. But what would I not? I would avoid. I think email is still really, really powerful. So I would definitely have some kind of like publishing engine that had some way to subscribe to it, whether it's Substack, Beehive, or just a straight email. I would definitely do something like that. I would definitely invest in something like this, a podcast where I can have honest conversation with people and then use those clips to sort of spread the brand awareness. I probably would hold on sort of straight advertising initially to make sure we've built the audience before we monetize it too soon. And, I'm thinking about certifications. I think like the certification courses thing is tricky. I probably wouldn't start there. I think, again, it would be aligned to the audience that I'm hoping to build and what they need. You know, if I'm building an education media company, then courses are a great fit. If I'm building more of a traditional publishing engine, that would probably sway. You know, the fit would probably be different. But what I would do is I would decide on what's the lead. Where do we think we can get the most leverage revenue wise at the most efficient way to build that revenue spine, so that we have the capital to expand as we learn who the audience is. You know what I mean?
I mean that's how we built our media. Is like the goal is to have that one motion, and then once you've got that motion, how can we reduce the risk more and more, and get the other motions like add events to reduce the load on that channel, add whatever to add the load. So what is that then next? But you have to have that one, and it's still 4 years later, our one is like 85% of 80% of revenue. But it was 100%. So I mean, it's probably 75 now, but it was like our full, and probably this year is going to end up being 70s or 65. So the goal is to reduce that risk and bring it down, but you need that one at first to.
You need an engine that you can keep pouring gas into to get that consistency to run the business the way you need to run the business, right? Because at the end of the day, the stability of the business, profitable or not, but whatever your funding model is and whatever, is the key to build the engine. Because in today's environment, like, you don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't have any idea what's going to come around the corner. So having that relationship with that audience, having that community with the audience, gives you a little bit of protection, a little bit of buffer. And then a lot of times the audience will tell you, right? Like, once you've got a big audience, you could just ask them, like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? Like, is this a good idea or not a good idea? Like the benefit of building that core spine and that core audience is, sort of unmeasurable in many ways. And so, whatever that.
And I think also what you said too is sometimes like that core offering that you have, like, instead of thinking of another offering, it's like, how can I improve on it so we can like increase, like,
that's right.
For some product, it's like AOV or revenue per user or like whatever you're trying to trade. Like, how can we make that offering more valuable? So like more and more, instead of going, now we have to go find something else. Like, maybe go what you're good at and make it better before you go into the next thing.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday he coaches founders. Really interesting guy. He's got 15 or 20 founder customers at any given time. And he told me the number one problem that founders have is they get bored. And they convince themselves that they're really smart, which they are. And they go, hey, we can do this too. And they add, like, just like you're saying, like, well, we pull this off. We'll pull this off. Well, when you add a second revenue stream that's unconsidered, you're diluting your resources and your focus. It's really dangerous. And so, boredom and ego can play all sorts of head games with you. But if you're laser focused on that audience will tell you where they want to go next. And if you can listen to it, I think it's a pretty cool way to run the business.
And lastly, I like to ask people on this podcast, what is a marketing hill you would die on?
What is a marketing hill I would die on? I would die on the brand hill.
That's a good hill to die on. I always die on the brand hill.
I think that's the only hill. It's the only moat, as far as I can tell, in our AI-powered world. Brand is like the only moat kind of left, other than just pure technical execution, which whatever. Even that'll get commoditized at some level. So brand. I
said to one of my friends who's in media today that like brand is like the ultimate risk mitigation tool. Like if you're trying to, like, performance marketing is not going to de-risk your business in a commodity world.
That's right.
It's how you're going to build the best brand and the best trust with your audience. So.
I think the problem with the word brand, which is why I pause, is that if you ask 10 people what brand is, you will get 10 different answers. Right. And so when I say brand,
one person's going to say colors and logos. The other person's going to say,
And by brand, I presume we're generally talking about the same thing. I'm talking about the promise of the brand that you built in relation to the audience remains, whatever you've set it out to be. It's consistent. It's whatever, right? Whatever those brand values are, they don't change ever. They never change. Your audience gets to know who you are. Nike is always about performance sports, period. Airbnb is always about like whatever they're about, like, renting, whatever. Like that, those values can't change. The colors of the logo don't matter, right? Like it's fine. It used to be heresy to play around with brand colors and brand logos, that's changed. You look at I remember the first time I saw a MasterCard ad where the logo turned into two baseballs. I was like, whoa, they're playing with what are they doing? They're playing with their logo. That's not the issue. The logo is not the brand. And so you got to be a little bit careful. I think you do need to.
Yeah. I mean, we're on the same line. I believe that those values are important, and reinforcing them consistently in a non-selling way
That's right.
is what brand is to me. Is not like we talked about earlier. Nike is doing these ads that are not like saying go buy a shoe right now.
Right. That's right.
But they are brand. They do sell shoes. Because it sticks to what their messaging.
That's right.
And where could people find you and what you're doing?
LinkedIn's a good place to find me. I got a Substack, Marc Sirkin Substack. My podcast is called Playbook Broken. I'm ramping up season 2. Got to figure out who's going to be on that. And Sirkin.com is my shill website if you want to talk consulting or strategy or whatever. But yeah, you can find me everywhere. I'm all over the place.
Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's a fun conversation.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.